Thank you so much, Flora. I hope many of you have had the opportunity during the course of the last few days to hear some of Flora's presentations and to follow her work. It's been one of my great joys to see someone join us as a postdoctoral fellow and emerge as a world leader in an area of science that is directly related to all aspects of our work. And it's also been a great treat to know Flora and her family as well as I do. The last presentation of this morning is by an individual that probably needs no introduction. A good number of the people in the audience have had an intense interaction with Andres and Joachim over the last few days, and they know who Andres Martin is. He's a man of great energy, tremendous intelligence, indeed charisma. And what he's been able to accomplish at this meeting, at the meeting in Melbourne and in Berlin, and coming up in October in Boston, etc., I think is really, truly extraordinary. He has become an eminent leader not only at the Child Study Center but nationally and internationally. And some of his great gifts he's applied to the issue of mentorship and training, and also to being a wonderful editor. And I think all of you know, but he's the brand new editor-to-be. I think people have actually started sending manuscripts to him for the Orange Journal, the Journal of the American Academy for Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. So it's my great pleasure to invite Andres to the podium.
Thank you, Jim. I'm so glad this is being recorded because I would love my mom to hear what you just said. That was just wonderful. I'm going to take a little bit of a prerogative, and I think that only Katya gets this prerogative, but I'm going to ask Ernesto to sit somewhere else. So I'm going to ask the chairs, all the four chairs, if you don't mind, if I could ask you to come to the front, and you will understand in due course what this is not just micromanagement. It's for a good reason. So Ernesto, please come to the front. We'll invite you back, and thank you for being understanding about this small request. It's been wonderful to hear these perspectives on Donald, and I'm going to give you a different perspective, one that I think puts many of these dots together. And let's get started. I named these comments Life is with Others. You've heard that was the name of the book that Bob King and I edited of Donald's papers, but the subtitle is new. And I thought about it last night as I was putting this together, a living tribute to a peerless mentor. And let me explain. So here at SCAP, we're very serious about disclosure statements, so I will start with a disclosure statement. And my disclosure statement is very brief. I have nothing to disclose, but it's actually a little bit more complicated than that, and I have to disclose that the program that I'll describe and the wonderful intense days that we have had together have been thanks to this foundation, Child. This is one of the ideas that Donald and Ernesto years ago put together, and we're seeing the wonderful things that have emerged of it. So I didn't want to lose the opportunity to publicly thank Foundation Child for making this wonderful experience a possibility, a reality. Donald. I think you haven't seen this photograph before, but here he is sitting to the chair that Arnold Gazelle used with his young patients. Donald was a Sterling Professor of Child Psychiatry, Pediatrics, and Psychology at Yale University and the Director of the Yale Child Study Center between 1993 until he died on October 2nd, 2001. Who was Donald Cohen? Well, by now you know, and I won't repeat all of that, but let me just show you 2 or 3 slides summarizing it. And as we dedicate this talk and this symposium in his memory. You've seen the photograph of Donald and Jerry Young with a young molecule of clonidine. Let me show you 4 of his many, many books. Donald wrote upwards of 500 articles and I think something like 16 books. Understanding Other Minds on Autism, Developmental Psychopathology, that's now in the second edition, Tourette Syndrome with Jim Leckman, the Yale Child Study Center to Understanding Your Child with Linda Mays. So he wrote a lot of books. You've seen this photograph with our dear Ernesto, with Helmut, with colleagues from Palestine and Israel. And you probably recognize this lady who is up and coming in the United States. You probably don't recognize Jim Comer, a senior professor at the Yale Child Study Center, who has dedicated his life to improving the lot of children and their mental health in the school system, starting in New Haven, then the United States, and now throughout the world. And this trio of Jim Comer, Hillary Clinton, and Donald Cohen doing great things for a great number of children throughout the country and the world. But it's very relevant in this international forum to say that Donald, and I think this has been echoed already, wasn't content with being a great scientist in a great, rich, wealthy nation at a great institution like Yale. He did that. He did that wonderfully. But one of the charges that he put for young people and for senior people throughout the world was to say, you have to discover and invent your own child psychiatry. You can't just import our own, the American way. This is not imperialism. You have to find your own voice. And these are two examples. This is the first textbook of child and adolescent psychiatry in China, in Chinese. Donald was very helpful to that, and the foreword is written by him. This is the first textbook of child and adolescent psychiatry in Hebrew, and the list goes on, and the list goes on. And for those textbooks that we don't have, I want to invite the many young leaders here who we'll get to meet to write the textbook in your language, in your country, to find your own child psychiatry. You can do it. This is a little pastiche of some of the things that we've heard. Donald's work with children refugees, children of war, Donald's involvement with children of immigrants. I myself am a child of immigrants, and I am an immigrant myself, so I can relate to this. Leo Walmer described in his comments in Nati's the Child Development Community Policing Project in New Haven, Connecticut. This is one of the papers coming out of the study of the Scud missile attacks in Israel. Donald was involved with the Special Olympics. We're coming to a big anniversary of the Special Olympics, and Donald was critical in bringing the Special Olympics for individuals with mental retardation and disabilities to New Haven, Connecticut. The work that took place with the Child Development Community Policing Project, as Leo also told us, was applied during 9/11, as Donald was already gravely ill and indeed on his deathbed. Bob King, in his first presentation, mentioned Ludwig Wittgenstein, who was one of the seminal influences in Donald. I chose this book, and probably the type is small, to read this line here. It's a biography that I haven't read, by the way, for full disclosure. I haven't read the biography. But the reason why I chose it is that this line, it says, "The duty of genius." I think that everybody in this room, would agree that Donald embodied the definition of a genius. There's no question of that. But genius is, or genie, I don't know what the plural of genius is, but such talented people can be very content to go to their ivory tower, to their room, and just be geniuses. Donald was a very engaged genius who took his responsibility very seriously and put that genius to work. He knew that with genius comes responsibility, and he lived up to it. You've seen these photographs of Donald and Phyllis, who is with us here in the crowd, and those of you who have not had a chance to meet Phyllis, please do. She's a wonderful lady. She also, for full disclosure, happens to be a wonderful mother-in-law and grandmother, and I love you dearly. Donald was, in fitting with this seminar, was the ultimate bridge, bridging gaps, bridging psychoanalysis. Who else could put Anna Freud and clonidine together? Donald. And we've heard in the words of Flora and others how he was a bridge. Okay, so that's who Donald was. Now, let me move on, and someone said, please don't make this too sad, and I won't. I promise I won't. So that was probably as sad as I'll get. So let's go up now. What is a living tribute? I mentioned that this is a living tribute. What do I mean by that? Well, this is one kind of a living tribute, that words continue and their influence goes on. And some of the verbatim quotations that we've heard from Donald through Leo, through Bob, come from this book. So this was a wonderful type of tribute. But by living tribute, I mean something very different. And I mean exactly what has happened here and the people who are sitting in the room. Let me give you a little bit of history. In 2004, Jim Leckman and I had the pleasure and the privilege to put together the first mentorship program. And we did it very quickly at the last minute. We didn't know what we were doing, and it was a tremendous success. It was wonderful. One of the things that I put here is that the fellows in that meeting were so prolific. They had so much to tell us that they wrote a 60-page document telling us what they had learned during their days in Berlin. It was a magnificent experience. Helmut Remschmidt was critical to that effort, as was Ernesto and so many others. Nati Leor was one of our first mentors. We did so well there that then we took the show to Melbourne, and that was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. That happened in 2006. Here we have a group shot of some of the young, brilliant, and talented people who we saw. Just to give you an example, Guilherme Polanczyk here from Brazil. I met him first in Berlin when he happened to just come into the meeting, and he told me that he was working on a little project on ADHD. He was part of my small group. It was statistically complex. It was a difficult project. And the long and short of it is that 3 years later, this Guilherme Polanczyk is the lead author of a paper that was published in the American Journal of Psychiatry just last month on the worldwide prevalence of ADHD. Well, that little story that he told me in Berlin that he refined in Melbourne is now the lead article of our most prestigious journal. You can do that. You will do that. This is a representation of some of the countries that were in representation at Melbourne, and you can see every continent, lots of countries. We were delighted to have so many colleagues from the developing world, and it was an absolute wonderful thing. But what happened here? What about Florence? That was then, that was far away, that was in Melbourne, but what happened here in this wonderful city of Firenze? Well, we had 44 fellows from 29 countries. You can read them there. Remarkable. Rich countries, poor countries, Western countries, Eastern countries. You name the country and it was here. It was just unbelievable. Italy, of course, was a wonderful host nation, and we had several Italian mentees and mentors. Here you have the countries that were represented for our fellows, and we had an equally diverse and rich group of, this is a map for the fellows, and the mentors also came from all over the place, from Australia to North America, Africa, Asia. It was wonderful. Let me introduce you to the mentors and just thank them again. Some of them are in the group with us today. Yanki Yazgan from Turkey, who will help us again put together something like this in Istanbul. Cesar Sotulo from Spain. Robert Vermeeren from Holland. Paul Ambroso, a colleague from the Child Study Center. Boris Bermacher from Pittsburgh. Joan Luby from St. Louis. And Naufal Gadour, who we'll hear more from in a few minutes, from Tunisia. Beate Herpert-Stahlmann from Germany. Luis Roggi from Brazil. Naufal again, he gets two pictures and you'll see why. Enzo Zecchi from Italy. You know me, John Fayad from Beirut, and Joaquin. An extraordinary group. Now, our fellows were all put together at this Residenza Caponeto, and they were there, but they didn't spend a lot of time there. They just slept and took showers there, and they spent lots and lots of hours in this meeting, taking a lot out of the meeting. So we were very happy that they didn't spend a lot of time at Residenza Caponeto, even though it was very comfortable. We, the mentors, of course, stayed at places like this. This was the ceiling of actually the room that I had, and this is Joaquin's master's chamber. So, we did okay. We had some benefits. Yesterday, as Joaquin and I were going around the groups to tell them, remind them to come here and so forth, we bumped into Boris Biermacher, who unfortunately had to leave today. He can't be with us here today. And we asked him, Boris, so, this was your first time as a mentor. How was it? I'm sure you all know that Boris Biermacher is one of the most published, most cited, most important child psychiatrists in the world. Someone we all admire deeply and a very, very busy man. And Joaquin and I were thrilled when he accepted our offer to be here. And he was punctually every day. It was just amazing. And yesterday when we asked him, so how did it go? He told us two things that were really remarkable. One is, at first, Joaquin and I were very worried when he said, well, 6 to 8, I'm very tired because I've been working since 5 in the morning. So then Joaquin and I were worried. But then he tells me, but at 6 to 8, we went and we met with these young people. And suddenly, I forgot that I was tired. I came out totally pumped. It was like I had 10 espressos. It was the most exciting part of the meeting. I didn't have to talk about my science. I didn't have to talk about depression. I didn't have to talk about the things that I know how to do with my eyes closed. I could just hear them and learn from them. And what a gift that was. And the second thing that Boris told me, Boris, for those of you who don't know, is from Colombia. So he talks with a little bit of an accent like myself. And he said, it was wonderful. It was the first meeting in my life when everybody had an accent. It was great. And I thought that was wonderful. And I think that really embodied the essence of this program. We all have an accent, which means we all have something in common. We all have something to share. We all have an accent to teach each other and to learn from. And it was absolutely a wonderful comment that warmed our heart. I'm going to close now before I introduce our next speaker, a surprise speaker. But for those of you who felt that this was going to be sad, I assure you this won't be sad. But before I introduce our next speaker, let me make some final comments, read some comments. In the introduction letter that we sent to the fellows, and Joaquin and I were very communicative, I think, with the fellows. We sent them lots of emails and lots of things, and they were tired of getting... They thought we were spam after a while. We were sending them so much information. But in one of those, we send them these words, all mixed up. And the idea is, does it make sense to put all the brain imagers together and all the geneticists together and all the trauma people together? And we went back and forth, and we've gone back and forth, and we've decided, and I've come with renewed confidence in the decision, the choice we've made, that it doesn't make sense to put like and like, that it makes a lot of sense to mix it up, that we have so much to learn from each other because, again, we all have accents. Some of you have neuroimaging accents, some of you have genetic accents. Everybody has an accent, and we have a lot to learn from each other's accent. So all mixed up. So before I introduce our last speaker, let me just read these words. At a moment when focus, focus, focus is the dictum that so many of us have been socialized into, and when our specialty demands further refinements in order to advance its scientific base, at a moment when we each should be doing more and more about less and less, it was instructive and refreshing and wonderful to be reminded of the power of taking the broad approach. Broadness can, of course, quickly descend into messiness and cacophony, into Tower of Babel, into a cheerful but inconsequential gathering where little of substance takes place. It takes a special vitality, focus, and openness of mind to make sense of the seemingly incompatible, to realize that complementary synergy is ours for the taking, if we are only wise enough to find it. And find it, these remarkable individuals did. In closing, I quote here from President Richard Broadhead of Duke University. His words were delivered in the year 2000 to the incoming students of Yale College, of which he was the dean at the time. And I quote, "For the sake of your growing wisdom, instead of insulating yourselves with those who already exactly agree with you, you will need not just to tolerate, but to seek the company of those who differ with you, and find out what they actually think. Argument and exchange are the stuff of education. Well-guarded unanimity is not." End quote. So, to the wise, uninsulated, tolerant, educated, and unguarded group of arguers who came together here in Firenze, to 44 fellows, 14 mentors, to all of you, I'm not going to be sad, I have this last bit to add. Thank you each for mixing it up. Thank you for sharing of yourselves. Thank you for the privilege of letting us know you. Thank you in brief for showing us how vibrant the future of our discipline is. And let me close there, but going back to a living testimony, to a living tribute to a great man. There's no greater tribute than to see work come alive. And rather than talking about words and about us, the grown-ups, let me introduce you to Naufal Gadour from Tunisia, who was a mentee in Melbourne. He was hanging out in Berlin, and here he came as a mixture of junior mentor, senior fellow, mixing it up. And he's going to tell us what this remarkable group did, and I assure you that this will not be sad. Thank you very much.
My name is Naufal Gadour. I live and practice in Tunisia. I'm a child psychiatrist. I was a fellow during the Congress in Berlin in 2004 and recently in Melbourne in 2006. And today, I'm like Anders said, I'm trying to be among the mentorship team. Closer to the... Okay. I'm trying to be a mentor and to transmit a bit of what I learned as the spirit of the fellowship program, at least the values I understood. One of them is being always together, holding hands and belonging to the big family of child psychiatry, which indeed is not as big as we can imagine it. All the people that you can read and you can hear of are here, and you can meet them very easily. Stay always open and available for each other in the difficult moments or in the daily needs that may occur. Also, one of the values I learned was to never undermine our role as a professional in our context, whatever our context difficult is and whatever the challenges are, and to never abandon an intuition because it may be the good intuition that may lead you to improve some of the aspects of the practices you do, and also to always ask ourselves whether what we do is valid and effective for the children we are serving. But I'm not here to talk about myself. I'm here to talk on behalf of the very beautiful people I met here, and it happens every time, and it makes me even sad more and more when the separation is here. These people, I met them here in Florence, and I just tried to be with them and to help doing again what we learned in the previous meetings. So this is the program of the Donald G. Cohen Fellowship Program in Florence, in a few words. Our first meeting was during the mental health well-being meeting in the Palazzo Vecchio. It was more about to learn about what are the most important policies and the general plans for the improvement of the well-being of children in the continent who is leading in the field of child psychiatry. We did our first contacts. We tried to learn about each other and to discover a little bit of the treasures of Florence. We also tried to integrate the organization team of the Congress by being in the first rows during the opening ceremony, or by participating as co-chairs in some state-of-art lectures. Some of us indeed were the chair when the chairperson was missing. And everybody came along with a poster. The posters were beautiful, magnificent. A lot of things were in them. I cannot report on all of them. So some of people were more about concerned about how to build facilities or how to implement things for children, sometimes in very low resourced countries, so that the children with developmental disorder can have some minimal, facilities and minimal care to improve. Some of them were more involved in acute genetic studies. We heard about a gene of humanity, maybe, if one of us will follow her intuition. Some of us also were more concerned and more interested in neurosciences and what happens in the brain. Some of us were concerned about adolescence and so forth. I cannot go through all the subjects. And also fellows met their mentors during group sessions. You can see an illustration here. And during these group sessions they could talk about many issues, as many as, for example, knowing more about each other's work and each other's challenges, debating about the polemic issues in child psychiatry, for example, the Peter Folegui intervention a few days ago, supporting each other with a lot of personal involvement in our difficulties in our daily practice, and also keep on touch and exchanging for the days to come in order to build a network and to keep this network alive for the days to come and for the congresses to come. But better than words, I think I'd better show you the next. I forgot about some important thing. There was also a huge and important issue, the orientation here in Florence. You know, we are in Italy, and sometimes things happen in a different way that we can expect. And this is an example of how can 40 of the highest minds in child psychiatry, armed with 10 maps and with all the technology in the world, can be just lost for the Firenze pizza maids. And a lot of things happened during this trip. So I said, better than words, I'm leaving you with a little film, a little movie. There have been some projections of movies here. So this is our participation, and we are still at the level of mute movies, so maybe the next congresses will be with more, talks. So I let you enjoy the movie. Thank you so much. I call back Andres Martin.
Well, thank Thank you, Naufal. And now let me explain why I asked Ernesto and everybody to sit down. If it's okay, maybe Joaquin, can I ask Joaquin Fuentes to come up and we'll figure this as we go. But what we thought we would do is that we want to thank all of the fellows. And if it's okay with people, or Ernesto, with Jim, what we would like to do is just mention your name, your country, and ask you to come up. We'll give you your diploma. We're going to thank you so that everybody can meet you. I ask people just hold your applause. Don't applaud till the end when we give a very special award to someone else. And you'll see who everybody is. The awards look something like this. And then maybe we can all come together.